Hello. This is your captain speaking. Welcome back on another Touchdesigner tutorial on this channel. It's been a while since my December special and I decided to take a short break from social media and Patreon in the beginning of the year 2021 and I am very happy that you are listening to me, and I am very happy you made it into 2021. I hope you're all doing good. And just a small reminder, I think you're great and very handsome, and you can be very proud of yourself that you made it so far. I think that's is something everybody needs to hear sometimes, so there you go. And another small reminder is that my December special, which meant 31 project files on 31 days, is still available on my Patreon, so you better head over there fast to download them. Congratulations, now we got past my bad self-promotion and can actually get started with my tutorial. So in the background you can already see what we are going for today. So basically, in the beginning we will build this composition or simulation of, I don't know, watercolor. And then I will show you some ways or some different outcomes to use animations like this to create different looks or feelings. So this is not specifically for this animation, but other black and white compositions you made. You can always use this techniques for the outcomes. So for example, it's this simple fake 3D-ish thing, and another thing is this color mixing thing, which is pretty nice and smooth and always fun to watch, I think. And the next thing is this chromey 3D-ish thing. And it's also great to mix in between those things. I think it can be pretty cool to create different looks or transitions, or yeah, whatever you feel like. So yeah, let's get started, and I will welcome you back on a clean Touchdesigner file so we can get started from scratch. See you there. So welcome to my screen. In the background you can see my default startup file which I'm using. Some of you who get my project files on my Patreon might know it. I added some stuff like a default keyboard in and some mouse in, so because I'm pretty lazy and I don't want to insert those things every time because I tend to use them very often. Also I got some noise and ramps and a constant already set up with my resolution, so I can switch it in here pretty fast, and whenever I use this I'm just copying it from there, because some of you may wonder why I do this. It's just because I'm lazy and I have my resolution already set up there. And yeah, also I have some things I'm always using, just like my abs time.seconds, and I will show you how I'm using that setup later. So this is something we don't need right now, so I will delete this. And for my for the technique we are going to learn, we will start with a noise. So like I said, I will just copy my noise and use it. If you want to insert a noise, just hit your tab button on the keyboard and insert a noise, and then type in a resolution you want to use. But I will do it another way. And another thing, I will connect it to a background so we can see what's going on. And another thing, like I said, I'm using the apps time.seconds from my constant job. So usually you just type in apps time.seconds whenever you want to use it, like in animating those noises. But I am using it like this. I'm just hitting the viewer active button on the bottom right, so I can export them, and then I just hold it wherever I want to use it, let go and chop the reference, and then I have it from my constant in here. Yeah, just like I said, I'm lazy. That's the reason why I'm doing it, but I think it's a pretty good tip if you're using Touchdesigner pretty often. It's always nice to clean up your workflow, so you might want to think about creating a custom startup file. Okay, so enough talking. What I just did was the first step for the animation we are going to create. So we need a noise that is moving, just like this, but right now it's a little bit too nervous, right? So we want it to be a little bit smoother, so I'm just dividing my parameter a little bit, just by, I think, 10. Yeah, well, that's a little bit too smooth. I think maybe 5 is right. So yeah, I think 5 is great. And now let's make some adjustments to the noise. So I don't want this much detail in my noise, so I'm just taking the period to 2, and I don't want any harmonics in here, and also I want it to be a little bit less, I don't want that much contrast, I want to say, so I'm using a bigger exponent. So basically the exponent defines the contrast in between black and white, so I will use something like this. Remember, you can always make adjustments in the end. So this is a pretty nice starting point for now, and then I will just copy the noise I just created, and then I will plug in the first noise into the second input from the second noise, and will connect that to my background. And now you can see what we are doing. So if you use the coordinates from your first noise into another noise, it will use the animation from this with in some kind of meta way. So you have it just a little bit stacked. And now you can see we have some color changing happening in here, and we don't want that, and that's because we have it still animated. Remember, we just copied it, and I don't want that here, so I will just hit the constant, so we don't have that color changing, but we still have the animation from our first noise. So this is pretty nice, and it gives us a little bit more detail inside of the noise, but we want even more. So I will set the harmonics to 2, which gives us more shades in between, and then I don't want to have this much contrast just like on the first noise, so I will take that exponent to something like, yeah, something like this. And now I want to trace the edges of this animation, which we will use to create our growth system I showed in the beginning. So let's insert an edge. And then let's make some changes to the edge. Right now it's a little bit too blurry and you can't really see what's going on. So I will take the strength to something like 3.5. And maybe make, right now we have lots of details and it might be a little bit too much. So I will take the black level to maybe something like this, just something really small. But we can always change this in the end, but right now I think this is pretty good to go. So now I'm inserting a null. So I'm always working with nulls, just so in case I want to blur those lines or make any kind of changes to this, I can easily insert it. Because right now we will go into different nodes, and so I don't have to change every node every time. I'm just having this null so I can add stuff in between. So let's build our growth system. In my former tutorial from my first growth system, I already showed this technique, which I learned from Electronaut, who is also pretty great and has a great tutorial on those whole slope thing, which we are going to build right now. So if you want to know more details about this, you should head over to his YouTube, and I will link it in my description. So I built a Tox where I already set up this node system for the growth system. So if you get my project files on my Patreon, you just can copy this Tox, but in this tutorial I will show you how this is built. So let's have a look what we are going to build. So basically we will, we will build this thing which gives us this nice little details. So just to be clear about that, and yeah, let's go on. So first of all, we wanna create a feedback, and then we wanna bring in a composite and connect this feedback to the comp. So then we wanna change the operation mode from this composite into maximum. And we will make this composition the target layer for our feedback. So just take it, hold it onto the feedback, let go, and there you go. So now we have our feedback set up, and now we want to make some stuff in that feedback loop. So just a small reminder, if you create a feedback loop, you can set up different operators that happen from frame to frame or from time to time. So for example, if we bring in a level in here, which we are going to need in the end, and if we reduce the opacity in here, we will make everything that happens disappear from frame to frame, just like null.null2. So I hope this gives an overview about this whole thing. So in this case, we are going to use the level not for the opacity, but we will make some changes to the brightness in the post. So just take the brightness to 0.99, because I want the shades to grow darker and I don't want them to disappear in this case. So, and also I want to have more contrast from time to time, so I used the black level, which turns everything black a little bit faster and gives us more contrast. We could also work with the contrast, but I feel like the black level works better in this case. So, okay, And now let's set up our growth system. So first of all, we will need a blur. And this blur needs to be really small, so set it to a filter size of 3. And also we will reduce the sample steps to 0.5 in this case. So if you reduce those sample steps, you will have lots of more details in the end, but more blurred details. I don't know how to say it. So you can receive a more detailed blur, which leaves the image kind of sharp, but still blurs out some stuff. And in this case, we are going to need this. So, okay. And another thing we will bring in out of this feedback, so just hit here and go down, and then hit tab, and bring in the composite. Set the operation mode to soft light, and then plug in this null we are going from in the first case. So, okay, because we want to combine our first thing and our feedback. And this will run into a slope. So I can't really explain what the slope does, but it kind of pushes the pixels a little bit faster, which gives us this whole growth look. And once again, if you want a proper explanation on that, head over to Electronaut. He will explain it much better than I can ever do. So, okay. And we will set the strength of this slope to 5. And, excuse me, the strength to 10 and the sample step to 5 and 5. And then before the level, we will bring in a displace. And we want the displace weight to be really low, just like 0.001, or maybe you can even work with 0.002 or 3, but I recommend to not go higher than that because it fucks everything up a little bit too heavy. So, and we will use our slope we just created in the second input of the displace. So, okay. Now you can already see we have this growth happening here, everywhere, which is very nice. And, now I want to bring in a keyboard, and so we can just reset our feedback sometimes. So remember, I have my keyboard in here, but I will bring in a keyboard in real quick. So under the chop, and then the keyboard in. Just place it over the feedback, and then it's by default on the key 1. So if you hit 1, export it, hold on to here and export it onto the pulse. So just chop the reference, and then whenever you hit 1, you can reset your feedback. This is pretty helpful sometimes. So, okay. So basically now we set up our basic animation. Let's make it a little bit more visible. So bring in a null. Where is it? There it is. And just in case you want to insert some stuff later. And then let's bring in a transform. So just real quick, so we can have a background and not have this transparent grid in the background, so we can actually see a little bit better what we just created. So if you want to bring in the background, I figured out that the transform works best. So just make the alpha of the background color to 1 and then comp over background. Okay, and there you go. Now we can see a little bit better what we just created. And I think this is already pretty cool. So now we finished our animation, which we will use for the different outcomes I showed in the beginning. So the first setup we will do is the fake 3D-ish look, which is pretty simple. So I will deactivate the transform right now. Just hit the bypass and then it's bypassed. Okay, so for our fake 3D look, we just bring in a slope and we will use a really high number of strength in that slope so we can see actually what's going on. So I figured out that something like around between 60 and 70 or 80 works best. So we already actually have some fake 3D-ish look from that slope. Remember, I don't really know how to explain it, but it gives us already this pretty nice shades and highlights, which makes a nice 3D-ish look. So if we want to have custom colors on this, there are some different ways of doing that. So for example, we could bring in a lookup and then use a ramp. I'm just copying my ramp. And I will bring it in here. And then I can add some colors to my ramp to define some colors. So I will explain really quick how this works. So, but you can already see some kind of fail we have here, because right now we are coloring a already colored thing, which we don't want. So we could make this monochrome by changing the pixel format to something like 32-bit float mono, which also gives us some pretty nice shades and highlights. But I think it's a little bit high contrast and I don't always want this. Right now it's pretty nice. So if we want to color it later, it won't work because we have a mono pixel format and the lookup uses the former pixel format. So if we change it here to 32-bit float, we have our colors back in. So you could either go by this way, or you could also leave the pixel format on 32-bit float here, or whatever it was before, and then insert a monochrome. Where is it? There it is. Which gives us this soft look we have from this slope without those high contrast, which I prefer for this look. So I will go with that. And now I will explain how the lookup works. So in our picture or animation, we can see in the background we have some dark tones like the black in this ramp on the left, and we have some highlights like the white of the ramp on the right. So basically this ramp defines everything you see, every shade you see in this picture. So for example, if we turn the highlights into red, everything that turns white or turns into a highlight turns red. If we want to color our shadows, we could make this shadows blue. So it turns everything that is dark to blue and turns into a highlight and into red. So for example, if we want to insert different tones, the more tones we add here, the more shades get colored differently. So basically this resembles the gray, and this a little bit of a lighter gray, and this is the lightest gray, and this is the white, whatever you want to call it. Though basically this defines the harmonics you kind of set. Okay, so this is my explanation for this. I don't know if it's really correct, but it works for me. So Hopefully it works for you too. So yeah, let's leave it like this. This is already our fake 3D look we wanted to create, which was very easy, I think. So, okay, so the second look we want to create, I'm gonna disconnect this real quick, and yeah, so the next thing we are going to do is this color, asset color thing we saw in the beginning. So I will bring in my transform right now because I want to see a little bit better what's going on. So to bring in the colors, we could either do it by the ramp I just showed and the lookup, but now we will go a different way. So I will bring in another noise. I'm copying this, bring it down, and then just like in the beginning where we used the coordinates from our first noise into our second noise, we are going to do this with the animation we just created. So just take it and plug it into the second input and connect this to our background. And now we have the coordinates from our animation inside of a noise with all its harmonics or the period. For example, if we set up the period a little bit higher, we have less colors happening here. So right now it's just monochrome. If we want the colors, which we want, we turn off the monochrome, and now we already have some colors which are randomly defined, and the noise basically gives us different color harmonics, which is pretty nice. So for example, if we change the seed, we get totally different random color combinations. So but we can still make some adjustments to them. We are not out of control completely, but a little bit. So so for example, if you set the harmonics to null, you basically have those colors you set in the period happening. So for example, if we have this 2, I think we have, I don't know, we don't have 2 colors, but I don't know how many shades this are, but not that much. So for example, just like I showed you in the ramp, remember when I told you if the more colors you insert here, the more harmonics you get. So basically the harmonics kind of work like this. So if you set the harmonics higher, you have more shades happening in between those colors you set in your period, basically. I think this is a proper explanation, but it's not scientifically right. So, but it works for me, once again. And okay, so now we brought in some random colors, and if we want those colors to change from time to time, we can use our translate once again. In this case, it doesn't matter if you animate the X or the Y or the Z, but I'm always going with the Z. And once again, we are using our appstime.seconds here and drop the reference here, and then we change from time to time. Right now it's a little bit too much of a banging, so I'm divided by 10, and then it's a little bit smoother. It's not even smooth enough, so maybe 50 is nice. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so this is nice, but it's a little bit too heavy maybe right now. It's too much of a color happening, and I'm not really sure if I like it like this. So if you want to have more contrast or not that much colors, you could easily combine the first thing we made with our color combination. So let's insert a composite here and plug in our first null, and then we have the black areas combined with our bright areas. Right now it's a little bit too dark, so maybe you want to bring in a level in between here and set the brightness a little bit higher so we can, so the colors are a little bit brighter. But yeah, this is totally up to you, however you like it. I kind of like it more when it's this mystical black and color thing happening. But yeah, you could insert a switch in here or something like that if you want to change it. So, okay. So this is our color composition we wanted to create. And the last thing we want to do is this liquid chromey thing you also saw in the beginning. So let's connect our first null once again, and let's bring in our displacement, or our chrome thing. I'm sorry, displacement is just a technique we will use to create it. So first of all, let's bring in another slope. But in this case, we will go with a low strength, just something like 5, or maybe let's go with a 6. And then we will bring in a blur, because without the blur the edges are a little bit too sharp and a little bit too heavy for the displacement, and it is a little bit too disrupted for my eyes in the end. So I will show you later how we use this. And then we need a image. Like I said, we are using displacement in this case, so we will need a image to displace. So a pretty nice thing to do could be to use a movie file in. Let's go with the banana for now. Insert a displace, plug in our blur into the second input, and let's connect it here. So yeah, right now it's looking a little bit too pixelated. That's because we use the wrong resolution here. So I will bring in a fit here real quick, and then I will copy my resolution from my constant. Just copy the parameter and paste it in here, paste reference, so we are using the same resolution like we are using everywhere. So this gives us more details on the banana. Yeah, this kind of looks nice. Maybe you could use a different image than the banana. Maybe, I don't know, maybe some of this videos is better. So you can already see this turns our video in some kind of chromey thing. So this could be a thing to use it. So the video is something like an HDRI, a fake HDRI. But my way to go in this tutorial is to use another noise, because I want it to be a little bit more abstract. And then I will plug in this in here, and now you can already see we have our chromey thing happening. This was pretty easy. So you could make some adjustments to the noise, like reducing the harmonics to decide how much detail you want or how much shades, whatever. I think, yeah, maybe 1 is nice, but with a little bit less of harmonic spread. Yeah, let's keep it like this. But you can animate this noise, you could make it colorful, whatever you feel like. I'm not going too much into detail in here. So right now we have our blur turned off, and I feel like it's too much detail happening, so it just gives us some kind of moire fail happening. I feel like I think it's not a real fail, but I just don't like it, so I brought in the blur. And once again I set the sample step a little bit lighter, so, and maybe make this a little bit heavier, so it's just a little bit smoother and nicer, and yeah, just like this. And yeah, so this is our last outcome. And now I will show you how to combine those different looks real quick. So we will bring in a null here, and then a yeah, the null was useless, but never mind. Let's insert the switch and then use every outcome we have and plug it into the switch. So if you change the index here, oh wow, this color combination is really ugly. Let's sorry. Okay, there, this is better. So so if whenever you change the index, you get a different thing showing. But if you turn on this blend between inputs, you have some smooth transition and can actually mix up between those different things you made. And this is also where I got this oil slick kind of look, from combining this color thing with the chrome thing, which I feel like is pretty nice. And I really liked it. And I always add a level in the end, just for some, I don't know, maybe some color correction, whatever I feel like. And I also bring in the HSV just in the end, just in case I wanna make some changes to the hue or the saturation or the value, yeah, whatever. And this is just some basic stuff I'm doing. So yeah, now we reached the end of this tutorial and the stuff I wanted to show. And I hope you learned something. I hope you didn't regret watching this tutorial, and I hope or you will listen to me the next time. I will make the product files to this tutorial available on my Patreon. And yeah, stay healthy and stay creative and stay kind, and bye bye.